right. All right. It's like my classic opening line. I feel like Matthew McConaughey. But anyway.
All right.
Welcome to Happy Hour with HatchMan. Scott Groves, my man. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on the show. Looks like you're getting happy hour started over there with a nice stogie.
Happy hour with a stogie and a blonde whiskey from Tennessee. So we're feeling good.
Hell yeah, I love it. I got my Maker's Mark. It's my go-to. So we're here in the bar. I know you're out in Vegas. So once again, thanks for agreeing to come on my podcast, man. I'm super pumped to chat with you and, have, more of my audience get to know you. I've talked to you about a few people around the office and just all the good stuff you're doing in, the mortgage community with your, coaching. So real quick story. I just want to, tell everyone kind of how we met, because it's just kind of funny how now we've run into each other a couple of times. So I don't go to Vegas hardly ever. Like when I do, it's usually for business or for some sort of an event. So I attended a mastermind earlier this year, and Scott happened to be one of the guys that was there. One for the mastermind, and two was presenting on a panel. Obviously he was in mortgage. I'm in mortgage. I think there were maybe two other mortgage people there.
Yeah, we hit it off.
Yeah. So, I mean, we just clicked, man. Like, just a good dude, likes to have fun. He's got his coaching business. He does a lot of other fun stuff. He's into Brazilian jiu-jitsu, cigars, drinking. I mean, obviously in Vegas. And then I was out there for another event, and we just happened to run into each other at a cigar lounge at the hotel I was staying at. So yeah, man, I mean, I'm excited to kind of have this chat and have this happy hour and just let you kind of tell the world who you are and kind of how you get started. So give us your quick little bio, man. Let's get into it.
Yeah, man. First of all, thanks for letting me leave work an hour early to have a drink and a cigar. Like I told my wife, I was like, I can't go to jiu-jitsu with the kids and I'm not working, but I'm doing something more important.
Yeah,
it's happy hour with Hatch. So this is the gig, right? So yeah, cheers to you. Let me out of work an hour early.
Happy to help, brother.
But, everybody's seen the Batman origin story way too many times. So I'll keep it like less than 30 seconds. Got into the mortgage industry in 2000, right after I got out of the Army. Went broke in 2008 like everybody else. There's really not a whole lot more to say about that. And then 2009, 2010-ish, really fell in love with lead generation. Shout out to Eugene Ridnour and Kirk Giroux, who I ran into at a wedding. I literally thought it was going to be my last vacation. I was going to come back, declare bankruptcy, and just go be a middle manager at like IKEA furniture or something. And Kirk and Eugene said, hey, man, we're the manager and assistant manager at a Prudential real estate firm, and we're hurting just as bad as everybody else. But if you come be our in-house lender, somebody will have to do a loan. Like somebody will like you, somebody, whether they're downsizing, getting divorced, they're rich, they're making money off this financial calamity. Somebody in the office will have a deal for you. So like, don't quit, just come be our in-house lender. And basically from 2009 to 2015, 16, we doubled our business every single year until we got to 100 million in production. That started paying off the bills. I paid off the $1 million in debt that I was in coming out of 2008, 2009, when I should have just declared bankruptcy, but I was too proud to do that. Probably wouldn't make that mistake again. And then it was funny because with falling in love with the passion to lead generation, that led to writing a book. That book led to running a coaching program. And now I'm really proud to say, like, we have a coaching program where we coach about 150 loan officers nationwide from 30 different companies. I'm still doing mortgages with my partner, Dallas Skinner. Shout out to Dallas. I always want to call her Dallas Rutherford because that was like a girlfriend of mine in high school. So I have this like Freudian slip every time I talk about my partner, which is kind of weird. But yeah, Dallas is killing it. Mortgage business sucks right now. It's really tough. And the coaching business is thriving because people realize to make it through this market, they need coaching. So that's where I'm at in a nutshell. I got 3 kids, a wife who is a freaking saint and has probably saved my life more times than I want to count. And I do jiu-jitsu at 43 years old and try not to blow out my knees.
Good for you, man. No, that's so cool. I mean, you touched on a lot of just, real stuff real fast. And I actually have your book here with me today. Check that out. There it is. So Lead Generate from Scott Groves. I haven't gotten all the way through it. I'm on day 12, but it's a super easy read. I loved your backstory, hearing about, because everybody sees the good stuff, right? When times are good and when things are going well, that's all they see is the success. It's that classic, iceberg photo, right?
Right.
They don't see all the shit that we had to deal with and all the failures. I mean, I mean, yeah, you were in a tough spot, bro. Like it was, a lot of people would have given up after that. And so it's cool that you stuck with it and to see what you've built. And now you're investing, your time to help other loan officers, which is a huge passion of mine as well. Like a lot of the information that I share here on social media is all for education, mostly client based right now. But the end goal for me is to get into coaching other loan officers. Cause right now, I mean, for me, like I've been in this industry 8 years, but I only really count the last 5 because the first 3 I was at Wells Fargo, which was a total nightmare. But I got my teeth, cut there and was able to do some good things, learn the good and the bad, realize that was not the right avenue for me. But yeah, man, this industry's tough. It's these ups and downs are wild. We just came off of an insane year. We were talking with our founder this morning, and he had mentioned that the industry total was, what was it? It was like 4 point something billion they did last year. And it's down to like 1.7. I mean, we've lost 70. Yeah.
Across the board.
Across the board.
$1 trillion in loans for all mortgages. And now we're less than half that.
Correct. Yeah. We've reduced, we've lost 70% of the business in less than a year. Like, I mean, have you ever seen anything like this before, man?
No, I mean, not since 2008, 2009, which is weird because 2007, 8, 9, depending on when your firm took an ass beating and when things disappeared. But that was more of a structural thing, right? Like the loan industry had screwed ourselves. We were writing loans that should never have been written. Wall Street was out of control. The government was out of control. All the hedge funds overseas who were buying our toxic mortgages, they were out of control. There's no, realtors were out of control. Everybody was out of control. And so that kind of made sense, right? Because like we kind of sowed the seeds of our own demise. Right. But what's happening right now is just stuff that's completely out of everybody's control. The HatchMan here, Scott Groves, me, my partner Dallas, the lender down the street. You can be the adamant pro and be doing all the right things. And at the end of the day, with property values still high and interest rates now, ticking into the 7s, there's only so many people that can afford to buy a house at that level. So it's not like we have intrinsically done anything wrong as an industry.
Right.
It's just cycles of business, right? Sometimes stocks go up, sometimes they go down. Sometimes once every 100 years, rates triple in 9 months, which I can't even believe I just said that out loud. I mean, would have never thought.
I mean, that's where we're at, right? I mean, no one has ever seen this drastic of a change this quickly. And so we're all just like, everyone was just barely getting used to paying 6%. And now we're, in 7s. And I mean, honestly, we're knocking on the door at 8 at this point. I didn't even think that was possible. But again, I've never seen a shift like this in my career personally. And so this is new waters. Everybody's trying to figure out what to do. Like for me, like, best return on investment I can think of is myself. So I've just been investing into more and more things that I can do to help my knowledge to, learn products that maybe I wouldn't have dabbled in prior. So I can help more people. Cause like you said, it's not that people don't want to buy. It's just, there's so many people that can't. Like they just, I have that conversation 10 times a day where it's like, well, you qualify for this much, but you qualify for 300K, but your median price is 450. There's just nothing out there. It sucks, dude. There's no other way around it.
Absolutely, man. You talk about writing those like alternative loans. And by the way, we're not going back to stated income, no documentation, no whatever, but there is alternative ways to prove income, right? Like maybe you don't have the tax returns to prove your income, but we can show 12 months of business bank statements that shows your business is spinning off $30,000 a month of positive revenue. So I'm doing one of those loans, jumbo loan, 10% down. Don't want to disclose too much about the client, but he just absorbed a lot of assets that makes him look bad on paper, but is generating a lot of cash flow. And so his tax returns have not yet caught up with his financial situation. So the only option we had was doing this 12-month bank statement loan, 10% down in the jumbo territory. We just locked in the rate at 10.25%. And
that's crazy.
He's not particularly happy about it, but it's going to get him into the house. And in April next year, when he files his tax returns and his, on paper income catches up with the realities of what's been going on this year, he'll refinance into a normal mortgage, conventional mortgage with a much lower interest rate. But yeah, it's just crazy. The idea that like I'm writing a mortgage with a 10 in front of it and the client's not happy, but not completely pissed off and disturbed.
Right. Yeah. I mean, well, because it's not that far off from regular rates. I mean, it's compared to what we've been used to the last couple of years. I think that's the problem, right? Because now we've set I don't want to say an expectation, but there are so many people that did jump on the wagon, that did buy a house, that refinanced or whatever, that's sitting in the 2s and 3s. You know, what is their motivation to sell their house that's sitting on a 3% mortgage and go into a one more expensive home, and then something that's 3 times the rate that they're used to paying. So their mortgage payment's going to be just ridiculously compared to what they have. And so I think that's just causing a standstill for move up buyers, first time home buyers. It's extremely difficult. And then, yeah, like you said, all the, you know, we've got these other clientele that have unique situations, and we got to find unique products for them. But luckily we did learn from our mistakes when it comes to lending, that we are, even with the bank statement loans, like we're verifying income, there's alternative options. So it's tough times right now. What are you seeing it? I know you're coaching loan officers all across the country. Do you think there are markets that are better than others, or is this kind of across the board right now?
No, I think all the markets suck. I mean, because think about this Venn diagram, right? And I don't know, you know, I read a lot about history. You know, the Great Depression is like a favorite subject of mine. There's this book called The Forgotten Man, which is one of my all-time favorite, nonfiction books. Think about this Venn diagram. So it's like, interest rates have gone up to an astronomical level, comparatively speaking, to where they were a year ago.
Right.
You know, historically speaking, they're kind of right in the range. But from where they were a year ago, we've had interest rates go up astronomically. We've got inflation have gone up. So that means, you know, your buying power of the money you have in your pocket has diminished by 10%. We have property values at a statistical all-time high. And a lot of buyers who are not ignorant, I mean, this all kind of makes sense. They're saying, well, property values have to go down. There has to be a collapse in property values because there should be so much inventory. The rates are higher. It's more expensive to buy a house, and rates or property values should be coming down. That's kind of one bubble on this Venn diagram. But you take the second piece of the Venn diagram, which is anybody who's bought a house in the last 20 years is up, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars in equity. And they probably refinanced in the last 2 years with a rate that has a 2 or a 3 in front of it. They got 2.75, 3.25. So now when you put these two Venn diagrams together, it's like, well, interest rates are higher, so that should force prices to come down. But oh, wait, everybody's locked into their house because they have such a low interest rate. They're not selling. So now there's a lack of inventory. And as we know, if we go back to Econ 101, I presume, because I didn't go to college, we go back to Econ 101, you know, when there's less supply because nobody's actually moving, the prices will go up. So it's like you have this dichotomy where smart people who have been waiting on the sidelines are like, all right, team, this is what I've been waiting for. Rates are up. I can finally get a deal on the house. And then the realtors have to tell them, well, guess what? There's still no inventory. So the few houses that are coming on the market are still catching a premium. So if you're a consumer right now, you're kind of just double screwed where like the interest rates are high, the values are staying fairly high. And I don't think this tension is going to go away anytime soon. So it's like, oh, well, I'll just wait 6 more months. Oh, great. Well, interest rates might be higher and the prices will probably be about the same. Right. So it's a real dilemma for consumers. And I'm very happy to be a current homeowner instead of a home shopper, to tell you the truth.
Dude, you and me both. I'm like, man, I'm really glad I bought when I did and got the loan when I did as well. So, and luckily I did buy this house for the long term. So that worked out. But what's the solution, if any, to this? I mean, that's the biggest question, you know, other than just waiting for things to get better. How do we still find opportunity in this market?
Yeah, I think, you know, if you're a buyer, you really just have to look at what's my long-term goal? Like, am I setting down roots? Am I going to be in this neighborhood for, 7 to 10 years where my kids go to school? Is this a payment I can afford? It's like, I hate that term, date the rate and marry the house. It's like, no, we need to be mentally prepared.
Sick of that meme.
So sick of that. We need to be mentally prepared for the mortgage you get today, you might have for 5 to 10 to 15 years. That could happen. Right. I don't think it's going to. I think there will be an opportunity in a year or two to refinance at a lower rate, but I'm not going to tell my buyers like, oh yeah, just buy this, right at the top of your price range and rates will go down. I can't control that. Any loan officer who's telling their client that is just being inauthentic. So, I think for the buyer, they got to look at long-term, is this a house I could be in 5+ years? If the answer is no, go live with family and save more money, or rent as cheap as you can and save money and try to come up with a bigger down payment.
Definitely.
If you cross hurdle number 1, yes, this is a place we want to be for at least 5 years. Then it's just a matter of having a conversation with the loan officer and be like, hey, can I get a 30-year fixed or a 7-year ARM, as you know, meaning the payment's fixed for 7 years, where I'll be comfortable with this payment and it won't be a devastating lifestyle change. Now, look, anybody who's ever bought a house knows that the payment is a little bit of a shock, right? You end up having to replace the roof every 10 years. And, your kid runs into the garage door with rollerblades, and now it costs you $1,000 to, replace the garage door. So these things happen. There's going to be a little pain anytime you buy a house, but as long as you're not devastating your family's cash flow with the monthly payment, which is fixed for a period of time that you're comfortable being in the house, then it's probably still a good time to buy, because everybody needs a place to live. Right. And it doesn't look like anything's on the horizon that's going to make rents, cheaper at all. So, I think from the consumer, it's like, you really just have to have a serious heart to heart with your loan officer and your realtor. What can we afford? Where can we actually look? Maybe we got to move a little bit further outside of town to get a little bit better deal or a little bit better pricing. And then for the loan officers, we probably just need to connect with 3 times as many realtors and 10 times as many consumers to do the same type of volume or the same type of business we are doing over the last couple of years, because there's just fewer buyers who are going to pull the trigger and say yes. So, it's like I was interviewing on my podcast Jeb Blunt the other day, who's like one of the godfathers of sales and prospecting, and he's written 15 books on the topic. And he just said, look, man, the more you prospect, the luckier you get. So if you used to have to make 3 sales calls to get an application, you probably need to make 15 or 30 sales calls to get an application. But when you make the 30 sales calls, you'll accidentally or luckily get 2 or 3 applications. So it all works out the way it's supposed to for those that are willing to put in the work.
Man, you said it. And honestly, that's what it comes down to. So, we were lucky enough to get on a conference call with Tom Ferry. It was last month. And he talked about, obviously he's a real estate coach, but a lot of his principles, same sort of thing, similar markets. So he was talking same sort of thing, like in a market that's down like this, where there's just less opportunity, there's less people that are going to be buying, you have to double or triple your efforts every single day. And it kind of sucks. Like you just have to accept that fact. In a sales position in our market right now, we're going to have to work 2-3 times as hard for half the pay that we're typically used to getting. But just know, but at the same time, if you can do that, if you can weather the storm, it's better than, we've had so many people recently that just, they can't hack it. They got nothing going on. They didn't save, and they had to just either completely switch careers or jump ship and find something else. And I know for me personally, like that's not something I'm willing to do. Like I've been working on building this for the past, 5 years, and I'm not willing to take a step backwards. So I have to work a little harder. And it was, I literally, right after I had that meeting with Tom Ferry, I came home, talked to my wife. I was like, listen, babe, it's going to be a rough year. You're not going to see me as much. We're going to make less money, and I'm going to be working harder. I just need you to be on board with that until we get past this. And she was like, I got you. And so
100%.
So, salesman, if you're married, you talk to your spouse, let them know it's going to be, a rough, because again, like you said, I don't know how much longer this is going to last, but we gotta prepare ourselves and get to work.
Yeah. Try having this conversation with your 4-year-old and your 6-year-old, which I did the other day. I was trying to explain to them, cycles of the economy and why this is one of those markets where dad has to work at least some portion of the day, 7 days a week. And I've got to do more podcasts and make more calls and spend more time in the garage office here after hours, taking meetings. And hey, my daughter, who's 4, asked, Daddy, when are we going back to Cancun? I want to stay at the hotel. It's like, honey, it might be a while before it's
going to be a minute.
Trips every 3 months, right? Like, the beautiful thing about the mortgage industry is with a laptop and a cell phone, you can work from anywhere, but maybe $5,000 weekend vacations, those are going to take a back burner for a couple of years, and that's okay. And now we're just learning to be a little bit more frugal, right? And a little bit less sushi and a few more tacos at home.
Absolutely.
And, I think explaining that to a 4- and 6-year-old, it's hard because like they don't even understand what the word "the economy" means.
Right. Yeah. They don't know any better.
When I break it down to them of like, hey, this is a time when daddy has to work harder. They're like, oh, like at jujitsu? I'm like, yeah, kind of like jujitsu, but like instead of like getting beat up for fun, it's just making sure that we have the lifestyle that we've become accustomed to. But what's interesting, man, is like I've been preaching to my loan officer coaching clients and my realtors as much as they would listen, although they rarely want to listen to us loan officers. I've been preaching to them like, hey, you need to get your systems and your team and your profitability and your income at a level where if you take a 50 or 60% pay cut, you'll still do this job. Right. Mm-hmm. So for you, for me, for a lot of the top producing realtors who got their income to $400,000, $500,000, $1 million, we can take a 50 or 60 or 70% pay cut. And if I make $200,000, I will still be fine. My family will still be fed. We'll still be putting money in our 401k. But the loan officer or the realtor who is making, $100,000 in the most profitable years ever in the history of mortgage and real estate, if they take a 50% pay cut, they're not going to stick around in this challenging industry for 50 grand. There's no way.
Right.
And, we're already seeing them starting to go be solar salesmen and gold chain salesmen at the kiosks in the mall. And it's happening, which quite frankly, I'm glad it's happening, because then the professionals like you and I, the people that take coaching seriously, the realtors that actually do the hard activities, they're going to be the ones that are here in a year or 2 years or 3 years when things turn around. There's a whole lot of extra market share. And I want the people who are hard charging to capture the benefit of all of the upside of the market share when things do turn around. So that's what I'm excited about, kind of seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, whether that's 6 months or 6 years away. I'm like, there it is. Just keep grinding and working towards it.
Absolutely. I mean, it's that old concept of, plan for the best, or what is it? Hope for the best, but plan for the worst. And that's kind of where we're at. So, especially last year, I mean, I feel really bad for any loan officer that got started in 2020 and through 2021, because they didn't know any better, and they probably adjusted their lifestyle based on what they were making in those years. And I mean, I know for me, mine's cut in half. I mean, but luckily, I mean, I knew that last year was kind of a one-off. And so we made some smart investments and we were good. And I actually listened to one of your webinars. So thank you for the tip. It caused me you talked about how much money do you need to make to live the life that you want. And again, we're loan officers. It's math. It's pretty easy to figure out. So it's like, okay, if I make this much, I can still, I may not be thriving to the level that I was before, but I can be comfortable. And so here's what I need. Here's what that looks like. And you can back yourself into that number and figure out where you need to be. So that was actually really helpful when you did that. Sweet. Coaching works. Right. But I want to switch gears a little bit, man. So I want to talk a little bit about your jujitsu, because I know for me recently, I'm sure you've seen it. I went through a big change physically, as far as just trying to get myself in better health. And I've noticed that once I kind of got my body, functioning and healthy and comfortable to where I was more confident in doing things, it really projected my business on the same time. Like, it's a lot easier to do the harder work. It's easier to stay those extra hours, put in those extra calls because if you've physically been able to do it, like it's almost easier mentally. I don't know if that makes sense. If you had something similar with your jujitsu, or kind of how you got into that and how that passion started for you.
Yeah. It's funny. Like, I've habitually been 20 pounds overweight since my 20s. I'll seesaw up and down to dude, I'm looking lean and mean at 195 pounds. And then all of a sudden, 3 months of not paying attention, and I'll be 215 overnight. It's kind of forgiving on my body frame where I can carry it and hide it pretty well. Yeah. But
you look great, man.
You look in the mirror naked, bro, and you're like, oh, dude, there's some weight where it shouldn't be. So, at the beginning of COVID, I should probably go back in time and tag myself from 2.5 years ago. Yeah. I never believed, at least the California government, probably the federal government, I never believed that it was just going to be this 2 weeks to flatten the curve bullshit. I was like, no. Once people get power, they never get rid of it. So
they were so out of touch with that, man.
Yeah, I started calling around to some jiu-jitsu gyms, because I used to box a lot in my 30s and play volleyball in my 20s, but I blew out my shoulder playing volleyball in my 20s. Oh. And I figured when I turned 40, I was like, probably getting punched in the head for fun is going to eventually give me some type of brain damage. And I waited until later in life to have kids. So I'm like, I don't want to be punch drunk and a moron with brain damage when my kids graduate high school. So I listened to Joe Rogan, and I'm old acquaintances. I wouldn't say friends. I would say acquaintances with Jocko Willink. And, they're just constantly talking about jiu-jitsu. So when COVID started, I called around to all the jiu-jitsu gyms, and I'm like, hey guys, I know that Planet Fitness and 24-Hour Fitness and LA Fitness, they're all closing down because they want to abide by the guidelines. Yeah. But are any of you guys staying open? Because I need something to do to work out, or I'm going to go crazy. Working, living, and playing from my house, I will go crazy. And so I found one gym where the guy was like, hey man, I don't know what the regulations are going to be, but I need to keep my gym open. I just opened. I'll give you private lessons. As I usually charge $120 for private lessons for an hour. I'll give you as many as you want to buy up front for $50 an hour, because I just need to keep the gym open. So I'm like, hey man, awesome. I'll Venmo you $5,000 right now if I can get 100 lessons up front for $50 a lesson, because I know this lockdown bullshit is going to last forever.
Man, you called that.
He was like super grateful. I Venmoed him $5,000 and we started the next day, and I did like 100 private lessons in 6 months, which
awesome.
Really accelerated the learning. And then I just fell in love with it. And right now, like, I'm not that great. I'm average. I'm in my 40s. I don't have the athleticism I did in my 20s. And I'm right at that blue belt level where like I can get my ass kicked without getting injured. So that's kind of like, it's like white belt, you have no clue what you're doing.
Yeah.
Blue belt, you can get your ass kicked without getting injured. And I'm starting to work my way to purple belt where I can kind of kick a little bit of ass.
Kick a little ass.
The junior guys, right?
Nice.
And then one day you get to brown belt, you can kick everybody's ass pretty much.
That's awesome.
So yeah, that's kind of the journey, and I've loved it, and it's helped kept the weight off. And I'll tell you, it's gotten to the point where now my kids are into jujitsu. My wife refuses to do it, but she can tell when I'm stressed out because I haven't worked out for a few days. She's like, hey, maybe you should go work out or schedule a private lesson or something. You're a little more on edge than you normally are. So it's been a blessing in the sense that like it's kept me mentally stable and kept the weight off. A little bit of a curse because, you know, I am 44 or something like that. And rolling around with some of these 22-year-olds that like just got out of college wrestling. There's back tweaks and some shoulder tweaks where I'm like, that might not work as well as I thought it was going to when I was 70, but oh well.
That's still awesome though, man. Well, you got to find something fun that you enjoy that also helps you physically, right? So like the jiu-jitsu is super cool. I've always been interested. I love watching, you know, MMA and UFC and all that stuff. So like, you know, I know that it's super intense. I've got a couple buddies that do that sort of thing. Eventually I'll get there. I'm still just kind of figuring my own little journey out. Right now, I'm just sticking to the either at home workouts, which by the way, was one of the smartest investments I ever did, was putting in a home gym right before COVID happened so that I could take advantage of it. And then I go to another gym 3 days a week. It's more like that HIIT style, you know, because I know I'm not going to do that on my own. That's one thing I know. I got to hire somebody that's going to force me to do it, because I'll lift weights and run and shit. But like those high intensity, you know, like rowing machines, fan bikes, you know, hardcore stuff, like I'm not going to do that on my own. I just know I won't. So that's why I got a coach for.
You know, that's funny. That's probably the next evolution of what I need to do. And it's funny you mentioned this. I've got a couple of workouts scheduled with my wife where we signed up for like one session at this yoga gym. We're going to do one session at this hot works, like HIIT type gym, because it's funny in boxing and wrestling and jiu-jitsu and in any of these combat sports, you can get just good enough where you know where you can be lazy and where you can stop moving and kind of rest and apply your body weight. And I'm starting to get there where like my little heart rate monitor, when I wear it once in a while, I've gone from, I don't know what it is, but like an effort range of like 24 over an hour and a half to like a 14. So I'm like, I'm getting good enough now where I can be a little bit lazy and I can feel my cardio going away. So now I got to work in a couple of these like HIIT workouts so I get my, blood pressure and my heart rate up.
I know they're brutal, but I mean, they're good for you. So I was doing a ton of research on that stuff, and I'm like, I know I'm not going to do it on my own, so I better go. But I mean,
real quick, I don't want to gloss over your journey just in case you've never really gotten to like fully tell this story on the happy hour with Hatch.
Yeah.
Didn't you lose like 70 pounds or some shit like that?
It was 50. I lost 50 pounds.
50 pounds, bro. Yeah. Like it's so funny. When I met you, you're like kind of a tough guy. You got the sleeves. You carry yourself in like an athletic manner. When you told me that, I'm like, bro, I can't even picture you like out of shape and fat. And then you showed me the picture. I'm like, damn, bro, you were fat.
I know. And so I did not carry it well.
Journey, because congratulations.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it was, I mean, you know how it goes. I was, I honestly was never a really kind of out of shape guy up until, until I was, right. Like in high school, I was always in sports. I was always active. Like I've always been a pretty skinny kid for the most part, like one of those kids that can just eat whatever he wants. And just, I was always like a $150 in high school. I was always tiny. And I got married, started having, my wife had kids, and you gain that sympathy weight. And I was still trying to stay active. Like I was doing little things here and there. But I ended up getting really sick. I got mono, which I don't know if it fucking sucks, dude. Like it took everything out of me. Like I thought I was just old, right? I was literally in like my mid 20s thinking that I was just dying. I was like, all right, this is what it's like getting older. You just feel like shit all the time. so finally it got to the point where it was bad enough where I just like, I had no energy whatsoever. Like I was pounding Red Bulls every day. I was trying to do stuff. I was in I was doing a mud race, the Tough Mudder. It was actually the second one that I did. And on like mile 10, my body just gave out on me and I straight up collapsed. And passed out. Like I was pushing myself so hard, but my body was just fighting against me because my immune system was shot. And so I ended up having to go to the doctor, and they ran all these tests, found out I had mono. And then on top of it, they found a kidney disease. So I have something called a polycystic kidney disease, which has like, I got a bunch of cysts on my kidneys, basically. It's not negatively affecting me right now. It'll be something later on in life that'll hurt me. But yeah, so like, it just kind of bummed me out. Like I was just like, well, this is my life now, like whatever. And so I just got into bad habits. I stopped working out, and just over the course of the years, just kind of let myself go. And we were at this indoor water park as a little like family staycation. There's one out in Scottsdale called the Great Wolf Lodge. Yeah. And so like we were hanging out there, and it's a water park, and so we're all hanging out, swimming with my shirt off, and like I'm just looking around, and I just felt gross. And my kid had my phone, and he was taking some pictures and stuff, and one of them my wife had taken a picture of me in this arcade with the kids after we were playing, and it was the side shot of me, and I was just massive, and I was just like, is that really what I look like? Like, dear God, what the fuck happened? And it just kind of like, I was embarrassed first of all, and it just kind of pissed me off. And so like whatever it is about that photo, I was like,
having sex with me,
right? I was like, what? This is not okay. Did you like? No one told me. What the fuck? Like I was kind of mad at everybody and myself. And so, but anyway, it just kind of triggered me to start making some better choices. And so I started doing a ton of research on nutrition and fitness, and honestly, it just started small. So I had a goal with a buddy of mine where we just we had the Apple Watches, and we're like, we had a goal to close all of our rings every day for a year, no matter what. So 30 minutes of workout, standing 12 hours a day, and burning at least, I think it was like 650 calories in a day. Very minimal stuff. But through the course of that, it's like, I don't know how to do anything half-assed. Like when I commit to something, I'm all in. And so, I really did a ton of research, got into it, and just, yeah, I mean, it was honestly the once I figured all it out and started putting it into play, the weight just came off. But it is like you can't do it on your own. Like anytime you're trying to get to another level, you have to involve other people. You have to have accountability partners. You have to have coaches. You have to seek that information from other people. So yeah, I mean, that's, my journey in a nutshell. I'm never going back to that fat guy again. I feel great. So now it's just, now it's not even a question. Like I know when I wake up first thing in the morning, going to the gym, getting my workout in, no matter what, that's what's happening. It's just part of my day now, just like everything else, just like lead generation.
There you go. Good tie-in. Good tie-in. Like but you mentioned with the better physical attributes, how much easier work is. The stress doesn't seem as stressful. You have more energy to make the call. I have to also imagine your relationship with your kids, your relationship with your wife, your sex drive, your friendships, like they've all got to be better, right?
100%, 110%. Like, well, and I've noticed that it has an effect on other people at the same time. So like, I was very vocal about this. I like if I'm going to do something, I'm vocal about it and I'm all in. So I need to make sure everyone's aware of it, because if I do start to drop, if I do start to lag on something, I want someone to call me out.
Right.
And that's why I tell everyone, I'm not trying to brag or just trying to like I'm trying to do it for the accountability piece and hopefully to inspire others to do the same. And so I've noticed even just with people in my office, like, I started taking the stairs, and I've noticed almost everybody takes the stairs now. I have, salads and healthy food. I've noticed, there's a lot less fast food coming into the office. There's a lot more salad deliveries, and so it's cool to kind of see how it affects other people at the same time, when you can just focus on one positive thing. But it does, it has that ripple effect, and it's interesting.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, man, that's why I enjoy talking to you the few times we've gotten to hang out. And like, as soon as you said, like, I want to be a coach or a leader, and whether that means managing people in the mortgage space or opening a coaching business one day, I'm like, oh yeah, he's going to do it. He's going to be successful at it, because there's nothing worse than a leader or a manager or a coach that says, do as I say, not as I do. And the fact that you want to lead by example, it's like, it's one of the reasons, if I'm being honest, the coaching business is probably making enough money now where, like, if my wife and I really reined it in,
yeah,
I didn't have to do mortgages, But I'm like, no. If I got to practice what I preach, and I got to be making my, connection calls and my lead generation calls and highlighting the boxes where I got to lead, because if I'm not doing this, I don't feel authentic as a coach. And don't get me wrong, there's some great coaches out there that aren't in the industry. They're not writing loans anymore, or they don't have industry specific knowledge on the place that they're coaching. But for me, I just wouldn't feel in alignment if I was like, Mr. Hatch, I need you to make your calls. And you're like, bro, you have no idea what it's like to make calls in this environment. Like, everybody's complaining about 7% rates. And I'm like,
yep.
Well, back when I was doing mortgages in 2020 and rates were 2.875, the calls were real easy. And you're like, of course the calls were easy. The loans were doing them themselves, you moron.
Right.
So yeah, I can't do that. And I admire that in you, that you really want to lead by example in all the things that you do.
Well, I appreciate that, man. And that's one of the reasons why, you're just so impressive to me. And like, because again, there's a lot of coaches out there that are like that. And again, nothing against them. I know there's phenomenal coaches that are no longer in the industry, but it's surprising how many coaches are out there that have like either never done the production that they're coaching you to do. And so that's my whole thing. It's like, until I earn it, I don't get to teach other people how to do it until I've done it myself. So that's the journey I'm in right now. Is I'm in the midst of figuring it out on my own. I'm putting in the work. Because this is going to give me data that I'll be able to share, because I'll be able to show that it actually does work. Not just because because I say so, but because I've actually done it. And so I respect the hell out of you for that, man. I mean, because again, everything that you're asking people to do, it's because you've done it yourself. You took yourself from, would you say, $1 million in debt?
Yeah, I was $1 million in debt in 2009.
Jesus, man, $1 million in debt. Like most people, that's bankruptcy immediately. Like that's, walking away, life-changing stuff. And you turned it around, man. And that's not easy to do, because it's one thing to start from nothing, which I've done, but to start from negative, that's way worse. And I've done that too. So I can understand that. My first year in the mortgage industry, I think oh my God, I didn't know how to prepare for this type of career. I was previously in retail banking, and my wife was on corporate investments. And so, we had paychecks coming in every single week. We were both paid biweekly on opposite weeks. I mean, there was a paycheck every Friday, no matter what.
Right.
And when I decided I was done with it and wanted to get into mortgage for some reason, this commission only gig sounded awesome. And so I just jumped right in head first, told my wife, hey, I put in 2 weeks at the office. I'm taking this mortgage job. This is what I'm doing now. And she was like, awesome. And like after 6 months of doing not even amazing, but like doing okay, realizing that I loved it, I had a passion for it, she decides to up and quit her job. And so now
wasn't she like pregnant or something when you gave like your 2-week notice?
Yeah, she was pregnant with my daughter. She was about 8.5 months pregnant. Literally the day I gave notice, later that day she went into labor, and I had to leave so that I could watch my daughter being born.
Oh my goodness!
And then I finished out my 2 weeks, and then I started. So I have a brand new baby. So my wife's on leave, and then she quits her job. Yeah, it was. I had to make it.
I was going to say, the beauty is there was no option for failure, right?
That's why I don't believe in plan Bs, man. If you have a plan B, then that's a problem. Like you're not all in if you have a plan B.
Yeah, I'm reading this book of Boys and Men, or of Men and Boys. It's a really tragic look at how men are falling behind in society and all the problems that we face as men and whatnot. And one of the things that he's talking about in the book is like this breakdown of the family. It's detrimental for single moms and, devastating for kids, but it's also devastating for men, where when they don't have that calling to like be a provider, whether or not they make more or less money than their spouse or whatever, doesn't really matter. But that idea of being a provider in some capacity and not having a plan B and being like, well, I've got to make this shit work because I've got a wife and kid who like I agreed to support.
Right.
It's devastating to not have that. And to your point, it's like you had no choice but to succeed. You had to figure it out through hook or crook. And I think that's something that's missing from some of modern society.
I agree. A lot of these books that I'm reading, they talk about, how just human beings in general were hardwired with that fight or flight instinct, right? So when our backs are up against the wall, we can either run away or we can fight and make it work. And so I know for me, and I know you're the same type of guy, like we're going to fight. Like I'll fight to the fucking death if I have to. Like I will go down swing in if I have to. And because again, I'm all in. I don't have a backup plan. And I think that's important though. But I think it's also important to realize once you've kind of hit what you can do on your own. I one of my biggest pet peeves is when people talk about, being a self-made millionaire or being self-made. I call bullshit on that, because nobody is self-made. Like I've learned what I've learned up until this point, not just from what I've personally done, but from other people. Like I've learned so much. Like, I mean, it's really simple if you think about it. Like, look at somebody that's where you want to be, become friends with that person, reach out to that person, ask them what they did to get to where they are, and just do that same thing. Like there's no secret sauce out there, but the problem is people aren't willing to either put in the work or put in the money. And that's it. I mean, and so I want to talk a little bit about your coaching business and kind of because I can tell that's what you're passionate about. And I'm the same way. Like, I'll do loans. I love doing loans. I have a passion for that. But if I'm being honest with myself, my real passion is educating people to be successful. I love seeing when that happens. And so talk about kind of how you made that transition from, loan officer to deciding to coach, and how to launch that, and kind of what that looked like for you.
Yeah, it's funny. I gotta give credit to my friend Justin Bale for coining this term. He's like, dude, you're an intellectual philanthropist, right? Like, it doesn't matter whether it's a realtor calling me or a loan officer calling me or a client calling me. Like, if they get me on a roll, like, I want to give them as much information and education as possible. Yeah. And then there's tons of stuff I'm garbage at, like complete garbage at. But one of the things that I do feel like I'm really good at is taking kind of a complex theory, right? Like whether it's getting a mortgage, or whether it's some Supreme Court case that I'm just reading about the synopsis, or whether it's building a business and lead generating. I feel like I'm really good at taking more complex topics and like breaking it down into like easy to digest, little segments, right?
That's good. It's good
skill.
Again,
whether that's getting a house where it's like, hey man, just focus on this. Send me the paperwork. Okay, cool. Now I got the paperwork. Now let's focus on this. Let's talk about what payment you can afford. Okay, now let's talk about this on how do you actually get your offer accepted, and just kind of walking them along those steps. We were finding a lot of success in 2012, 13, 14 with the mortgage business. And I was at a company that was mostly back east. So they were like amazed by the loan amounts in Southern California. I'd be like number one on the leaderboard by volume. And I'd have all these loan officers calling me saying, how are you doing it? How are you doing it? I'm like, well, first you moved to California where your average loan amount is 700,000. Right.
It was 3 deals. So like,
yeah. Like every deal that I'm doing is like 3 deals for you. So it looks better than it is. But, that led to people just being like, hey, could I have 5 minutes? Could I have 15 minutes? And what I found is I was spending half my time talking to loan officers, and it was a detriment to my mortgage business. So I said, hey, look, anybody that has questions, just show up Thursday morning at 9 o'clock and we'll have an hour-long conversation. We'll do some masterminding. We'll share some best practices.
This is pre-Zoom days, right?
Yeah, this is actually, we were a super early adopter to Zoom. Really? So we were, I swear to God, we were like the first account in California on Zoom.
That's so cool.
Shout out to Chris DeRosa, my marketing assistant, who found that thing like 9 years ago. So that Thursday call, people were getting on, and I found that I was doing a little bit of teaching and kind of like, arbitration of the call and pulling out ideas. And then my friend was like, bro, if people are going to show up, you might as well charge them for it. So we started charging people for it. And then, that just led into more calls, and then a daily call, and then live events, which is anybody who's thinking about doing live events, give me a call. I'll talk you out of them. They're a big pain in the ass, and they cost too much, and they're never
a ton of money. They're a ton of money.
Ton of money and a pain in the ass, but it's good to get our people together. So yeah, that just kind of evolved. And in the early days, 7 years ago, we had a lot of false starts. We brought in partners that were good people, but didn't need to be partners with me. We mispriced the product. We overpriced the product, so it's like, now we finally kind of have our groove. And we've got 150 people that we coach individually. I'm also the in-house coach for the company where I work. So we've got another 200 loan officers that we're coaching at like a corporate level. And nice. I can't talk too much about it, but I'm pretty close to opening a deal that's probably going to put me in front of another 1,000 or 2,000 loan officers, which is pretty exciting.
Holy shit, dude. Congrats.
Yeah, man. Thank you. I think by the end of 2023, we will probably have gone from 7 coaching clients 7 years ago to like, we'll have over 500 coaching clients by the end of next year.
Dude, that's impressive.
Thank you. And what's great is it's all scalable. And because it's group coaching, it doesn't take up incrementally more time, and I can still spend 40 hours a week working in my mortgage business, which is important to me because like I said, I want to be walking a mile in that shoe, and I want to make sure I'm setting up my business partners in my mortgage business, Dallas, want to make sure I'm setting her up for success. So it's like, even though the market kind of sucks right now and the conversations are harder and the deals are harder to come by, it's like, this is the business for which we signed up. And it's still a great way to make a living as, a college dropout who did a lot of on-the-job training.
Amen to that, man. Like honestly, right? Like what other type of job where, you can make $100,000 in a month? You might make zero the next month, but the opportunity is massive. And I think markets like we're dealing with right now is going to separate those who truly want it and are truly going to succeed, and those that were like, this is not for me. Yeah. And so, and honestly, like a big part of me over the last couple of years has wanted something like this. I'm kind of, eating my foot now that I was thinking that. I'm like, oh man, I can't wait for the market to fucking drop and loan officers get out of this and just open more stuff up. But I didn't mean it to be this bad.
Right. Maybe like rates in the fives,
maybe like fives, go back to the fives. Like I remember
some of the call center refinance LOs, like we didn't need to go to 7. That was a little dramatic, mortgage gods.
I think 2017 was my first year as a loan officer in the non-bank. And I was really, really pissed off at myself because I had a goal to close 100 loans and I closed I think it was 89. I felt like 11 short of my goal. And I was super, super pissed at myself.
So. That's an epic first year, by the way. So, it's crazy though, because it wasn't that long ago in 2000. I mean, that's half of my lifetime ago. But in 2000, when I started, I remember I did a first lien home equity line of credit at Washington Mutual for a client that only owed like 150 left on their house in Burbank. Yeah. Never forget Al Pardo. Shout out to Al. I love that guy. I wish I kept in touch with him after Washington Mutual failed. It was one of my first mortgages that I ever did. And he was stoked to get 6.99%.
Right?
He was like, awesome, 6.99.
Hell yeah.
I can get rid of this 10% fixed mortgage because he had something like left over from the 80s. And he's like, I just want to drop the interest rate for the next 5 years. I'm on an accelerated payment to pay off all these investment properties. And so, it's really, you mentioned there's kind of like this mental anchor for a lot of people that have been in the market the last 5 years. Like they're used to a rate with a 2 or a 3 and a 4 in front of it. But humans have short memories, good and bad. So given another year, rates are going to trickle down probably a little bit. It'll be like, oh, cool. Yeah, rates in the 5.5. That makes sense. I remember the good old days where there was that flash in the pan where you could get a rate with a 2 in front of it, but that wasn't reality.
It wasn't real.
I think humans will adjust. Consumers will adjust within the next year or two here, and then we'll be fine. The job will be back to being not as hard.
I agree. As mentioned, the call we had earlier today with our founder, he's been doing this for as long as I've been alive, for 36 years. And he was saying, look, it's there, in the mortgage market, there's amazing times, there's rough times, and there's times that just straight up suck. And right now it just straight up sucks, but it's not going to last forever. Like you have to weather the storm. Like you got to think about it in those senses. Like we're going to get through this. The market is shit right now, and it is what it is, but we're going to get past it. And rates are going to get better. They might not, but you do need to plan for the worst, and you have to set yourself up for both. And like you said, it comes down to just, those are who are willing to work for it right now, because it is going to be a lot harder for a lot less money for the next little bit.
I'm doing a lot more cigar and whiskey at home in my garage instead of going to the cigar lounge and spending an extra $50 or $100 a night that I don't need to. So, if that's the worst that it gets, woe is me, right? First world problems.
I'm really glad I stocked this bar up in 2020 when I could afford it, because now I'm just going to reap the rewards.
Yeah, now you feel a little guilty. Let me see what you got back there. You feel a little guilty about buying a $300 bottle or something.
Oh, this is the bottom shelf stuff. The top shelf is 2 levels up. That's where the good whiskey is.
All right, cool. That's what we'll hit when I'm out there.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll pour the. Let's see. I got a Jack Daniel's Sinatra edition up there. I got some Blantons. I got some. Weller.
Are you a Scotch guy? Do you like Macallan and all that really weird stuff that gets super expensive?
So I like Scotch every once in a while. Like I'm really weird with Scotch because I typically like the ones that most people don't, like the really peaty, really strong stuff. So like Lagavulin is my go-to when I drink Scotch. So I love the Lagavulin 16. McKellen's not really my jam. It's too sweet for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, Lagavulin, and then what's the other one? There's one other Scotch that I order. Might have it. Highland Park. You had that one?
No.
Yeah, Highland Park 12-year.
To me, Scotch and wine, and pretty much outside of like everything outside of like a vodka, soda, and like Corona Light. To me, it's like, dude, I can't tell the difference between a $50 bottle of wine and a $500 bottle of wine. So if there's somebody who really knows better, I'll just leave it on them. Like, hey man, you order, I'll drink whatever. But like, I don't have this really refined palate where I'm like, blah, blah. So I would probably like the sweeter stuff, the McAllen or whatever it is, just because like, I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah.
Or you can just buy me a case of Corona Light and I'll be fine.
There you go, man. See, at the end of the day, I'm a bourbon guy. Like I'll drink bourbon all day long. And again, I've spent, I've bought $800 bottles of bourbon. I've bought $20 bottles of bourbon. And honestly, my favorite one is about a $70 bottle. Like, so it's not insane, but like, I don't look at the price so much. Like to me, it does come down to that flavor profile and just kind of how it feels. Like I'm weird. Like I love the more high proof, but so something that's really, really hot, but it goes down smooth. Like I like to be able to taste it and taste the alcohol and the spirit. But the second it hits my belly, I want it to just be on fire. Like that's my jam. You're
from like the Appalachian Mountains, right? Like drinking the stuff to stay warm.
Right. Yeah. Like I like the moonshine stuff. Like I have a bottle of, what is it called? It's actually my very favorite bottle of bourbon, and it's not crazy expensive. It's the Elijah Craig Barrel Proof Edition. So barrel proof just means that they don't cut it like they do their other stuff. They don't add water to it. It goes straight from the whiskey barrel into bottles. And so it's nice. Like you can taste all of the, the oak and the age, and every bottle is a little bit different because obviously every, situation and how they age is a little bit different, but most of them clock in right around 140 proof.
Oh, God.
And I just love it. Like to me, it tastes like apple juice to me. Like it's just delicious.
Oh, that sounds horrible.
I know, but I love it. Like I said, I'm weird. I like this super, super hard stuff, but.
So I'm looking up this stuff because I don't know if it's the same one, but I will never forget when I was a kid, my Uncle Hubert coming over, who's like this old, he's passed away now, but this old, super deep South redneck from Tennessee. Yeah. I mean, talking about like making his own moonshine. And he had this stuff that he swears he made, but maybe he bought. He called it like White Lightning. And
that's a thing.
All these big dudes that like thought they were tough, like he's a skinny old man, and they're trying to stay shot for shot with him. I'm like, bro, that guy's liver and kidney is pickled. He's been drinking this shit since he was 12 years old. And I just remember my father, my Uncle Craig, everybody out in the yard puking their guts out. And he's like, they're just like on death's doorstep. And he's like, all right, guys, I'm going to drive home. I'll see you later. And he had like a 3-hour drive home to the middle of the desert. And we're like, that person is not human. Like, he was sneaking water shots when he was feeding them the White Lightning shots. And ever since then, I have like this little thing in the back of my head where I'm like, I probably don't come from a family of whiskey drinkers where it's going to end well for me. So I'm either going to be puking in the yard or just become a pickled alcoholic. So,
oh my God.
I'll stick with my occasional whiskey and my normal Corona Lights.
Good for you, man. No, like it's funny. Like, so now that I have lost the weight, like when I was 50 pounds heavier, I could smash a bottle of whiskey all day and be completely coherent, take a full loan application. Fine. Like I literally could do that. Now I'm like 2 glasses in, like it's a different story now. So it definitely hits me harder, but
cost effective to be skinny, bro.
Yeah, it works out, right? I'm like, I can get just as drunk with half the liquor this time. So
yeah, my wife's
money well spent.
Drink. My wife says she's a 2-drink minimum, 2-drink maximum, because it's like after 2 drinks, I'll be carrying her home. But she likes to have 2 to go dance and loosen up and go to a comedy show. But if she sneaks in that 3rd drink, it's over.
It's over.
Her hair back that night. It's bad.
It's important to know your limits. So I've learned now that I'm a little skinnier that I have to space each drink out with a glass of water. If I do that, so the trick with me is I have to stick to the same alcohol. So I can't switch. Like I can't go from whiskey to tequila or to tequila to beer. Like if I start mixing shit, night's over. Like it's that's a different HatchMan. You don't want to see that guy. He's crazy. But if I just stick with just whiskey and ice, water in between one, I'll be fine all day long. I'll be good to go.
There you go.
You just got to know your limits, man.
I love it.
Well, Scott, man, I think we're coming up on just about an hour. So I appreciate you taking this time. I mean, cheers to you, brother. I got to get out to your podcast out there live in Vegas. That way I can light one up with you. Maybe I'll drink I'll bring you a bottle of scotch. So I'll bring.
Sure, man. I'll provide the humidor of very expensive cigars back there. Which
Yeah, man.
I'm very glad I bought those in the last 2 years, stocked up, and we'll smoke. We'll light $100 on fire, and we'll drink a bottle of whiskey.
Well, I appreciate it, man. I seriously appreciate it. And for everybody listening, be sure to check out Scott Groves. What's the name of your podcast?
It's called On the Edge Podcast. Not safe for work, not endorsed by the coaching business or any mortgage company I represent, because we do some interesting interviews on that. And then everywhere, Instagram, Facebook, everywhere, I'm just Scott L for loser or lover, depending on what you think about me. Scott L Groves on Facebook and Instagram and everywhere else.
You're such a humble dude, man. I appreciate you. Like I said, I was ready to sign up for your coaching class, and he's like, nah. He's like, you got this, man. You don't need me. So
you got Alec Hansen, bro. He's your leader. He's coaching you along. He's a great guy. He'll teach you all the shit.
No, shout out to Alec. He started a little like mini coaching program earlier this year, which luckily I got to be a part of. It was kind of like we had to actually like apply for it since he wasn't charging for it. He's like, all right. There's like, we need whoever's going to apply. I'll vet you. We'll see it. And so I was lucky enough to learn from, the man, Alec, and he's doing so many cool things. I love what he's doing. And that's a big part of the reason why I'm at the company that I'm at, because the leadership that we have, I really believe in. I believe in the overall plan. I think we're doing the right thing for the clients, despite there's some naysayers in the news and whatnot. But at the end of the day, like I know who my leaders are. I know what I'm about, and I know what we can do. And so it's cool, man. But Scott,
Alec's a good dude, man. He's one of those guys who I hope we cross paths and get to work together at some point in our career. He's a good dude. You're a good dude. We're all good dudes, man. The ones that are going to survive are the good dudes in this industry. So I'm excited about the next couple of years.
Absolutely, man. I mean, and that's what it is, right? You got to be a good person. Like, every guest that I've had on this show, like, that's what it's all about. It's like, I don't give a shit how much money you make. None of that impresses me. I don't really care about any of that. Like, I appreciate hard workers and people that are trying to take that good and turn it back around and put it back into the community and teach others. Like, I feel like, if you're good at something, you're obligated to teach it to others and show others what you can do. And so, Scott, I mean, you're living proof of that. I feel like you're doing that day in, day out. I absolutely, value the time that we got to spend together in Vegas the few times I've been out there. And so I appreciate what you're doing. Keep with the coach, and anybody that does need help with coaching. If you're struggling right now in this market, Scott's living it. He's not just preaching it. He's fucking doing it. He's getting out there every day. Read his book. Like I said, I'm only 12 days in, but I can tell you, I listened to what you said, like on the chapters where you're like, seriously, put this fucking book down and write it down. Like, I was like, all right, I'm going to fucking listen to Scott, because you know what you're doing, man. Like you've done it before. And so I'd be stupid not to. So wow. I appreciate everything that you've put out there and everything you're still doing. And fuck yeah, man. Cheers.
See you soon, man. Cheers.
We'll see you soon.
I'll share this as soon as I find it.
Sounds good, buddy. I'll get it posted here soon. Thanks, man. Bye.